I just started sharing, and I just gave what I did. There's days that were horrible. It's like, this sucked. But by the time I hit like day 56, I was too busy with deals coming in. I couldn't do the blog. So then I went back at day 100. I'd made 150 grand because I'd shared, and so much stuff was coming in from my network that I was sharing. It just blew up like crazy. And I was like, I'm onto something here. And from that point on, I've done a lot of videos.
From the cubicle to the lab, the studio to the war room, climbing the corporate ladder, or joining a scrappy startup, experience a day in the life of the jobs you want. This is the Experience a Diddle podcast.
A diddle, spelled ADITL, stands for A Day in the Life, and that's exactly what we do. We interview professionals, entrepreneurs, and recent grads about what a day is actually like, hour by hour on the job. This podcast will inspire you to gain experience beyond the classroom and launch a career of your own.
We're your hosts, Krista Bowe
and Matt Poe. Welcome to part 2 in the 2-part Starting on a High Note series. In part 1, we went through hour by hour in a day in Scott Carson's life as a real estate note investor. In this episode, we'll take you through Scott's career so you know what skills and experience are necessary to land a job as a note investor. From communications to business, from banking to ballparks, let's learn how he did it so you can too. The first question is, I would consider you an entrepreneur. Krista would too. I'm pretty sure you would agree. But the first thing we ask all of our guests is, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Did you always have this entrepreneurial fire in you, or was it not always like that?
I've always had kind of the entrepreneurial fire. My dad owned a local hardware store. So I grew up in that from the time I was in the 4th grade, cutting keys, cutting glass, running the register, always mowing lawns on the weekend, stuff like that. So I've always had the entrepreneurial bug. When I went to college, I wanted to be the next Dan Patrick from SportsCenter.
Amazing.
I played college football. I was fortunate by an academic and athletic scholarship, so I played 2 years of college football at a D2 school, but my knee was pretty much shot after that. But I started off in mass communications, transferred to university, was going to be journalism, transferred to another university, and decided after taking a year off from school, just trying to find myself and transfer, I decided to go the business route. My first year back, or my first semester back after taking a year off from school, being a bartender and turning 21, my GPA went from a 3.4 down to like super secret probation. Okay. 4 classes, I had an A, a D, and 2 Fs. And so my counselor, when I was a junior, he's like, you need to do something really quickly in the next semester. Otherwise you can get booted out of college. So I got serious about it, made the dean's list the last 2.5 years straight, basically, and graduated at 3.4. But, I liked business. It was fun. I like numbers. So then when I graduated college, I took a job with for 90 days for Enterprise, rent a car, realized I didn't want to wash cars in 100-degree heat here in Austin. And then went into sales with Verizon Wireless, where I really did well with it, with sales and stuff. And then I started getting my securities license and loan officer's license, insurance license while I was still working at Verizon. And I went to work for Smith Barney and Citibank and did that for a year till I got laid off. And, that's the year that was really pretty tough for us. I mean, back in 2002, when I graduated from college, 2000 when I graduated from college, but in 2002, I bought my first house, and then we bought 2 investment properties, and then I lost my job. So I was a deadbeat borrower. Me and my ex-wife at the time were paying 6 mortgages, 3 first mortgages and 3 second mortgages on a private school teacher salary of 35 grand. We were shaking the cushions for change to put for gas in the car to get us to work, hoping that the paycheck would come in on Friday, hit the account, so we could go to the gas station and fill up on the way home.
I was watching your video on your website, right? And you mentioned it earlier, too, that you got right out of school, you bought 2 investment properties, and in that video you said, I did it the wrong way. Can you explain what you meant by you did it the wrong way? What were some of the things you thought were good? And
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's valuable for anybody that's looking to do that. So, we bought our house and we got 100% financing on our primary residence. We had a first mortgage and a second mortgage. Fine. It worked perfectly. Nothing wrong with that at all. If you're buying a house, great. Love the house. And then our realtor, nothing against our realtor, she's like, oh, you've got great credit scores. You should be an investor. I'm like, oh, yeah, great. I know everything because I grew up in a hardware store and I watched flip this house. Okay. So then we bought 2 properties at full value. We didn't buy them at any type of discount. We thought we were going to rent them at the highest price. Oh, rent in the area is like $1,500. Your mortgage payment's like $1,000. Oh yeah, we can do that. We didn't take any type of education. We didn't get really any coaching or talk to anybody. I just thought I knew everything. I wasn't coachable at that point. And literally, I got laid off about a month and a half later. And then here in Austin, at the same time, Dell, or Hell, some people call it, laid off a big part of their workforce. So our people that were going to rent that house couldn't afford the $1,500. So I had to drop the payment down to the point where I had to drop it below what our mortgage payment was. So like I said before, I'm making 3 first and 3 second mortgages on a private school teacher salary. We had stuff that was vacant. So I had to sell those houses off. I had to sell them on a short sale. I joked the only people that made money on that deal was the realtors. If you're going to be an investor, you should be buying at a discount. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. And if you go to YouTube these days and Google in rental properties or rental property training or fix and flip training, there's so much free education out there. Please be coachable. You don't know everything coming out of college, even though we often think we do. Take an opportunity. Heck, if you're in a market, you reach out to me. I'll tell you who to talk to in that market.
From there, Scott worked as a banker at J.P. Morgan Chase.
That was obviously a more corporate route. Did you enjoy being in corporate?
I enjoyed the steady paycheck. Let's put it that way. Okay. I think my salary was like 35, but I was making close to like 100 off of bonuses and commissions at the time. Banking's a lot different now than it was, over a decade ago. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked the fact of talking to people every day was the same, but it was different with people coming in and opening accounts. And I believed in networking. So I would always I wouldn't say I got in trouble, but I would get my hands slapped a little bit. Like, you can't do that. Like we were doing happy hours in the bank from like 5 to 7 with our business clients at my branch. And we were setting all these sales records because we had people coming in, hanging out, having a good time. And they found out we were doing wine and cheese parties that they got all upset about with corporate. So that's what I disliked. I disliked having Big Brother telling you what you could or could not do or what you could help somebody or not help. And that kind of rubbed me wrong because I'm the kind of guy that really wants to help people. Like they told us, oh, you can't refer anybody to somebody outside of Chase. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If somebody wants a florist, I'm going to give them a client of mine, if they want to come in and notarize, need me to notarize something, but it's not a Chase document, I can't notarize it. That doesn't make sense. So that was the things that, irritated me, but it was really good. I liked it. Banking, if I ever had to go back and get a regular job, I'd go back into banking, but I think I'm unemployable at this point.
So what was that role then? It was a customer facing role and it was at a desk or what exactly were you doing?
I was a banker. So you walk into the bank, you needed to open an account or start an investment. I was a banker here for their branch in Austin, Texas. It was the second largest branch. It's 75% Hispanic. So Spanish speaking, and I hablo un poquito español. So, I use a lot of Google Translator to help me get through the job, but I did well, and it was a lot of fun. We were a little short staffed, but I'm a big believer. This is for anybody that's out there. It's dealing with people that speak a different language. If you embarrass yourself like you're trying to help somebody, talk to somebody, whether it's Google Translate or something like that, oftentimes people will appreciate that, and they often, most of the time, a lot of my clients spoke English better than I spoke Spanish, and we could make it work. But when they saw me embarrassing myself, they're like, "Oh, this guy doesn't know Spanish that well. So I'll use my broken English, and we would get things done a whole lot faster." And then they would come back to me all the time. It was repeat business because they knew I wasn't afraid to embarrass myself, that I was really trying to help them.
His next move was working for his friend's mortgage company as a senior loan officer, where he worked with retail and investment buyers to find the correct lending product that fit their investment strategy. It was in that same year that Scott decided to do something for himself that jump-started his note investing business.
In 2010, with the market being where it's at, I had a business partner that I was working with, a realtor. We'd gone different routes, and the market was in shambles here. I had a couple of fix and flip properties that I bought that I wrote checks to the closing table to, sell them because the values had dropped to them. And so in 2010, I literally sold everything here in Austin. My house, everything except my truck and my dog. At the point I'd gotten divorced at that point. And I was watching TV one night, and there's those Visa commercials or those MasterCard commercials about buying, hot dogs, $7, tickets to the game, $50, spend, months with your son as you go to every ballpark price list. I was like, oh, that would be fun to do. I'm a big baseball fan. And so I love the power of writing down a goal. I think it's so important. If you have goals, write them down. So literally like that night, it was March March 4th of 2010. I saw the commercials. Baseball season was coming up a month away. So I wrote down, what would it be like? Where would I go to travel? I pulled up ESPN.com, looked at the schedule. Where would I go to hit all 30 ballparks? And I just wrote down these dates just for the heck of it. Literally, in that next 4-week period, I had like 4 real estate investment clubs or 4 periodicals reach out to me and ask if they could either have me come speak at their investment club on Notes because they saw what I was doing online, or use a blog that I'd written and put it in their newsletter, and if I could come speak. Well, the dates that they wanted me to come speak would corresponded directly when I would be in that town on this fictional baseball tour.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so
Total
Oh
divine
my
intervention.
gosh.
Yeah, my hair still stands up. Okay. Yes, and so I was like, hey, that's somebody telling me something. So sold everything, jumped in the truck, and I headed off to Dallas and then to Houston, and then I was making my trip. I hit South Florida, and Florida was a mess with all the mortgage defaults and stuff like that. And I had friends that would reach out to me and say, hey, you're coming to town, you can crash on our couch. We got a spare bedroom or a pool room or something like that. And what I thought would be like a 30-week trip turned into a 3-year trip of traveling across the country and speaking and meeting with bankers. And it was just one of the most amazing things. I like to call it like the grassroots effort of running for office. I was out shaking hands and kissing babies for those 3 years, but it really revolutionized my business. It was a leap of faith because I think when I left, I had like $1,500 in my account, and I was like, I'll figure something out. Worst case, I'll just call my mom and maybe she can wire me money and I come home and live with her for a little while. But I had things that happened that were just amazing. And somebody asked me if I wanted to teach a class, I'd teach a class, make some money, or I'd buy a note and then sell it and make 30 grand. I was like, okay, I'm good for a while. And, there's like 3 weeks in a row that every day I went to a different bank or 2 banks in a day. I would walk in my suit and meet with a banker, the vice president of this small branch, and talk with them about their portfolio. And then you got a guy who's like 60, 70 years old, gray hair, looking down at you like, what do you know? And I'm, short hair. I got like a buzz cut. Like I'm an ex-Marine, and that was when I was, I guess, 31. So I looked younger than I was. And they're like, what do you know? And I'm like, well, I know that you've got, $75 million in bad debt in your books, and 90% of it's after 90 days, and it's in a depreciating market here. And he'd like, oh, hang on a second. And then they would come back and get me like 5 minutes later and walk me into his private back room, and there in like conference tables would be just stacks and piles all the way from the floor to the ceiling of their loan files. And they're like, here's my assistant. Can you please buy some of this stuff from us? And I have like my students with me, then their eyes would get all big. I'm like, oh, let's spend the afternoon here looking at what they got. So
if you're wondering how Scott got that information about what each branch had on their balance sheet, it's all public knowledge because every bank has to file quarterly reports with the FDIC. It tells you how much good debt that they have, how much bad debt that they have, and how late their loans are. It's all right there for you to see. So I also want to get into, you mentioned that you were like teaching classes wherever you could, and you have your own workshops through We Close Notes. Would you mind just talking about like how you like sold yourself as an expert to be able to teach some sort of subject matter like to that very first client, and like how I guess students could learn how to do that as well?
Yes. That's a really great question. I'm glad you brought that up, because with the way it is today, and there's so much social media, and there's so many things now that are so much easier to do than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Okay. So like I would just start sharing on social media, on like Facebook, hey, here's a deal that I'm working on, or here's a deal that I'm working through. And I would just share that constantly. And everybody I met when I was going out networking somewhere here, I always got a business card. And the one thing I would do before I went to bed at night was I put them in my spreadsheet or my database, and then I would send them an email and say, hey, John, or hey, Adam, or hey, Carrie, it was so nice to meet you. Here's my contact information. Love to meet you for coffee or something at some point. Okay. I still do that religiously after an event. And so that helped me kind of build a network of people across the country when I was doing the mortgage business of traveling. Okay. And I started building a database, and your riches are in the niches, but your net worth is your network. It's still to that day. Okay. So I started sharing everything online. And then when these investment companies or investment clubs called me up, they would always ask, hey, do you sell a workshop? I'm like, yeah, sure. I got a workshop. How much you sell? $250 or $300. I make it up. And people are like, yes. I'm like, oh shit, I should have offered more. But I would just go through like the nuts and bolts. You do a day in the life, right? I would do a day in the life of a note investor. Here's what you do to find them. Here's what you do to raise capital to fund them. Here's what you do to flip them. So I kind of created the 3Fs: how to find, fund, and flip non-performing notes. And I did classes where there's 30 people or 3 people at it. But when you're kind of bootstrapping, you're glad that 3 people paid $499. For 3 days, that's you're living high in the hog then at that point. No PB&J, I can go get some spam.
High roller.
A high roller. You're not having to eat ramen every night then at that point. But that's a thing, is don't be afraid to market. And what I realized a long time ago is that the fact that I was closing deals, I knew more than 95% of most people. And so I just shared what I did. I shared how I found these deals. I shared how I structured them. I shared what I said. I started filming myself on like my old BlackBerry. There was an old video out there of me on my BlackBerry filming me calling banks and getting hung up on. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just start sharing. Don't be afraid. People worry about, how do I look on camera? I look fat. I'll start doing videos when I lose weight, or my hair's not perfect, or my makeup's not perfect, or whatever. I'm like, just do it. Just share the knowledge. And with everything being and going to video these days, start doing it now. You've got YouTube, which is the second largest search engine. Google owns it, obviously. You have Facebook, which has the video. LinkedIn has now video features to it. Instagram TV, iHeartRadio is on videos now. You have all this stuff out here. Just start sharing. Share videos. Doesn't have to be long, 2 to 5 minutes ideally, but just sharing the good, the bad, the ugly. And one thing that really helped myself along the way is I started a blog, a daily little blog. I called it 100K in 100 days. My goal was to make 100,000 in 100 days. Never done it before, but I just started sharing. Here's what I did today. A little written blog and a photo or a short little 2 to 5 minute video when I did. And I did that every day on a blog. And by the time I got hit day 30, I had like 2,000 subscribers to the blog. And people were literally starting to email, hey, I got a deal you might be interested in, or hey, I see what you're doing. I got 25 grand. Can I give that to you? Can I lend that to you? I'm like, okay, I got my money here. Oh, I just started sharing. And, I just gave what I did. There's days that were horrible. It was like, this sucked. But by the time I hit like day 56, I was too busy with deals coming in. I couldn't do the blog. So then I went back at day 100, I'd made 150 grand because I'd shared, and so much stuff was coming in from my network that I was sharing. It just blew up like crazy. And I was like, I'm onto something here. And from that point on, I've done a lot of videos on webinars, and I started doing like almost a weekly webinar back in April 24th, 2011 is I started doing a webinar. And I've done almost every Wednesday, at least 30 to 35 Mondays out of every year, doing a webinar every Monday night on some sort of subject or some sort of content or something. And it just helped me blow up. What was kind of funny with the videos is I was in 4 different cities. I was in San Antonio one night. A day and a half later, I was in like Austin at an investment club, and I flew to San Diego for another investment club. And then the 5th night, I was in LA for another investment club. And every night there, I'd walk in and somebody would come up to me and say, hey, you're that note guy. It was crazy. I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah, I watch your videos. You're great, man. Or you're that note guy. Or I love that you were out walking in an apartment complex and you got sweat running down. The dog was chasing you off. Like I wasn't like Ty Lopez. I didn't have like a video crew following behind me. I just had my little Dell flip cam and a phone at that point. But I just started sharing, and it just blew up like crazy. And it really helped me become who I am today.
I mean, you started off in a media and a communications major in school, and then you switched to business, and it's like you're still using all of that experience today. So like that's pretty inspiring.
So I was in Vegas a few months ago, and I'm not married, but my spouse we're pretty much my significant other, and I were talking, and I was like, you know what? I just dawned. I was like, me doing these videos every week on Facebook, every day on Facebook Live or every week. It's like my own note center. Welcome to Note Center. Kind of my own personal Dan Patrick. But yeah, you're right. I think public speaking, the more you can do it, it's only going to help you when you're out speaking or in crowds, and especially with so much being in social media today. Like I said, so much video, the more you can get comfortable in front of the camera and smile and even kind of poke fun at yourself and just be real. People love that. Just be real. If you're struggling, share it. The most successful people out there, not even just in the real estate, but the most successful people are the most approachable.
And that's how We Close Notes got started. Since then, he started his own podcast, The Note Closer Show, branching off his video content that he posted on Facebook Live and diving in a little deeper on note investing. So I want to get into your podcast a little bit more. So you mentioned that you were just doing a bunch of videos and stuff like that, and you just wanted to translate it into a podcast. But what made the podcast different from the videos that you were doing, like on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and how did it all come about, I guess?
So 2 years ago, I had a couple of my students that started a podcast for the note investing, and they did well with it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Great. It seems like a lot more work than what I want to do. And they were talking about how they were editing everything. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that much work. I'm busy enough as it is. Video, I'm lazy. I can pull my camera out or I can jump on, Facebook and do a Facebook Live really fast. I don't have to edit it. I'm good. And so I had Kevin Harrington, who's one of the original sharks from Shark Tank. I was at an event and was speaking with him. And he talked about how video is really where everything is at, whether you believe it or not. Just start sharing content with your audience. I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did. I just started November 1st, 2016. I just pulled out my camera and I just started, so I'm going to do a Facebook Live every day. It was relatively new then at that point. Gary Vaynerchuk was doing a lot of, the daily V's at that point. And I was like, oh, I like Gary V. That's great. Let me model it a little bit similar to that, but give my own flavor to it. So I just started a daily, that's what we called the Note Closer Show at the point. It was just a daily video about what was going on, what we were working on that day. Whether it was 2 minutes or 30 minutes, what were we focused on as a note investor? And I did basically 9 months of those videos. And about month number 7, a friend of mine was doing another podcast. His production guy came to me, said, you really should do a podcast. You get a lot of content. I'm like, no, it seems like a lot of work. He goes, no, we'll do all the work for you. Well, do I have to recreate? He's like, no, just use the same things right now that you're using to record, whether it's Facebook or Zoom. We can use that and run with it. I go, really? And my students that had done a podcast for 2 years, they told me, literally one of the guys is like, yeah, I'm tired of it. We're not going to do it anymore. I'm like, that's stupid. You got 2 years of great, an audience there. You're really the only thing on iTunes. And like, yeah, we're not going to do it. I was like, okay, that's stupid. I'm going to jump on that. And sure enough, August 21st of 2017 was our first official podcast episode after doing 149 straight Facebook Lives. And we do it Monday through Friday if we can. Usually it's the first thing in the morning when we roll in. We do it usually mostly Monday through Friday. We have half interview style and then half me sharing a nugget of the day, or a lesson of the day or something like that. So it's revolutionized how we do business. So I get letters from people that listen to the podcast, or it's helped me with that coaching sales in my classes. People like, oh, I came across your podcast. I want to sign up for your class because I heard you on iTunes or Stitcher. I'm like, wow. And one of the biggest things, like 2 weeks ago, I do some one-on-one coaching, and I had 7 people that came to Austin to spend 3 days with me that paid $15,000 a piece. And 3 of them said that they came across me and listened to basically me for a month before they signed up. And it was because of my podcast that they signed up, which I was like, there you go. Thank you. I was like, awesome. I can't give up the podcast now. I'm hooked.
Totally. Oh
Talk about an ROI.
Yeah. But that's the thing, with so many podcasters, they worry about trying to monetize. Like, oh, I need to get a sponsor. I'm like, well, first of all, you got to know who your audience is. My audience is note investors. They're primarily 35 to 65, college educated homeowners that are interested in real estate or retirement. They are in management or they have an own their title, COO, CFO, that kind of stuff. And so that's who we kind of target. And we do get some people outside of that, but that's our niche. There's probably only really about 10,000 true like distressed note investors out there that are like me. It's not like 500,000 fix and flippers or 1 million landlords. It's a much smaller niche. So instead of trying to go wide, I went deep on what we do here. And we're really the only show in game now for the most. I'm one of three or four educators who've been doing it for more than a year. I was Educator of the Year in 2014, which was kind of a nice honor. I was in the running for it again this year. But if I tell people, look, just start sharing. Don't overthink this. One nugget to you may not seem like anything, but it's huge to somebody who's listening on the other end that doesn't know that. And I always try to be positive because you never know. Some people have emailed me or sent me letters saying, I was in a horrible mood and I listened to your podcast, and then your energy is just contagious. It got me through a bad point. Thank you so much. That's That's what it's all about.
That's awesome. So that's a good segue into my next question that I want to ask. I saw your Facebook Live today. Was it today? The Reinvention Radio interview?
Yeah, with my buddy Steve Olsher. Yeah,
exactly. It was really cool. I loved it. And I wanted to ask you a question that you had asked Steve. You know, and you're dealing with a lot of clients that are going through financial hardships and things like that. How do you, keep your emotions under check and like overcome tough hurdles with bad deals or like messy clients, things like that?
Oh yeah, good question. I will tell you, there are bad days. Everybody has bad days. We have good days, we have bad days. I'm a big believer in the 30-second rule. Like if something bad happens, if you keep putting bad energy and bad energy and bad energy after something went bad, you just ruin your whole day. You lose focus. And honestly, with quantum physics and everything, positive energy attracts positive things. Negative energy attracts more negativity. So I big in my office here to avoid long-term like Debbie Downers, 30 seconds to bitch about something and we move on. That helps. But we still have deals that go south. And the beautiful thing, this is a numbers game. Like I have like 300 and some odd assets that we're working through at any given point. So it's constantly changing. And this is also why I also put a lot of my work on my vendors, because they handle most of the they get the borrowers that are yelling at them. They're dealing with the F-bombs and things like that. So it's reports back and forth. The biggest thing I can tell people is find something each day that helps you kind of center, whether it's, meditation in the morning or you're sitting outside enjoying something or you go for a walk.
That wraps up part 2 in the Starting on a High Note series. Huge thanks to Scott Carson for sharing his wisdom throughout this Experience Diddle series. If you haven't already, be sure to listen to part 1 in the series to experience a day in the life of a real estate note investor.
Do you need experience? Are you looking for an internship? Well, you can join the team and interview anyone in any industry by becoming an Experience a Diddle student interviewer. Regardless of your major or amount of experience, this is the perfect stepping stone into any internship or career. Apply to the Adiddle Army at experienceadiddle.com/students. That's experienceaditl.com/students. Thanks for listening. To find the show notes with all relevant links and photos for this series, head over to experienceadiddle.com. That's experienceaditl.com.
If you learned something in this episode, please take some time to help our mission by leaving a positive rating and review of the show. Each week, we bring you a new interview series with guests from different jobs and industries. So, don't forget to subscribe.